What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Pick Six Podcast, CBS Sports Daily NFL Podcast. I'm Will Brinson. I'm your host. If you're listening to the podcast, it's Thursday, October 20th. Happy birthday, Mom. You guys can say happy birthday, Mrs. Brinson.
Happy birthday,
Happy
Mrs.
birthday,
Brinson.
Mrs.
I know you're not
Brinson.
listening because you don't listen to your son's stuff. So
I don't blame her. That's Pete Prisco, Mom. You know him and you love him. My parents do love you, actually, Pete. And R.J. White joining me. Of course, if you're listening to the podcast, it's actually Friday, October 21st. I'm wrong. If you're watching the podcast live on YouTube, it's Thursday, October 20th. Anywho, it's my mom's birthday, so happy birthday to my mom. Wonderful woman. Pete Prisco, R.J. White. What's up, fellas? We got some best bets to do. Really, we're going to try and keep this quick, so I don't even know why we bother recapping last week at all. It's just
maybe we should just take last week, wrap it up, and put toilet paper and throw it in the toilet.
Indeed, not a good week for anybody. It was a good week for a charity because the Jets won, and Brady Quinn gave $1,000. Dom in the chat points out he wanted to say thank you and please tell Brady thank you for the donation to Gift of Life House. If he finds a donor, they will have to stay somewhere like that because they'll be out of state. So good for the Jets for hopefully making a difference, and Brady for being the guy who absorbs the financial cost of it. They're 2-0 since he made the proclamation. He'll give $1,000 for every win they have, Pete.
Huh?
You know they're 2-0 since he made that.
Yeah, I know.
Is he going to keep paying in the playoffs?
I would assume so.
Wow, RJ with the Jets in the postseason. I like it.
Do you think they're the second best team in the AFC East?
No.
I don't either. Let's get to the games because we're supposed to go quickly. We'll see how that goes. We start. Yeah, we're not going to recap. We're just going to go straight to the games. We were so bad last week. We each had 2 wins, and we all had a bunch of losses. I'm 6 games below 500. Pete is even at 500. RJ 4 games above 500. Colts and the Titans, a couple of 500-ish teams battling it out for the AFC South, which has suddenly become, I think, like the Colts to get right back in it if they want it. The Titans, are at home. They're minus 2.5, a total of 42 that has dropped a bit. We're playing at 42.5. Derrick Henry quietly just absolutely destroying the AFC South in 16 games since 2019, 24.4 carries per game, 137.4 yards per game, and 21 touchdowns. In that same span against Indianapolis, 23.6 carries per game, 113 yards per game, and 6 touchdowns. Pete, does Derrick Henry destroy the Colts on Sunday in Nashville?
Well, I don't know if he destroys them, but he'll have another good day. And they physically beat them up. They really do. I did like what the Colts did last week against Jacksonville by shuffling the offensive line. It actually looked okay. They moved Pryor from right tackle to right guard. Braden Smith went back to right tackle. They put Dennis Kelly in at left tackle. At one point, he played pretty well. So I think their line looked better. But I would lean to the Titans here. I don't love this game, but I would lay the Titans minus the points. And I know RJ has a teaser on this, and I kind of like the way he went with it.
Indy didn't allow any sacks against Jacksonville for the first time all year, so it does seem like they're figuring something out with that offensive line, which is the big Achilles heel we've seen all season. Matt Ryan finally had a blow-up game, it felt like, throwing all those passes, but he's actually been pretty solid in 3 of the last 4 statistically. But to do the eye check, I don't think he's played as well as the stats would indicate in those games, but he hasn't been a total disaster like he was at the very beginning of the year. Tennessee's defense, 31st in yards per play, but 32nd against the pass. So I think if Indy comes into this game sticking with the game plan of throw like they did against Jacksonville, even if they're getting their running backs healthy, I think it benefits them if they do that, especially if they're not confident in the offensive line after all their rejiggering that. Indy's de-gashed by the Jacksonville rush offense, but they're typically solid. They're 9th in yards per play on the season. Tennessee's offense only 28th in yards per play, but they do very well when they get to the red zone. They convert like over 90% of their red zone trips into touchdowns. So if they can get to the red zone enough, they should score points. I think Indy will keep scoring points. Even though the total's coming down, I would lean to the over. Power ratings say Tennessee should be -4, but I'm kind of like more leaning to Indy the way they're playing. And at 2.5 is a perfect teaser number. So I teased Indy up to +8.5.
Yeah, I like that better than my best bet of Tennessee. I just think we're going to get a Derrick Henry explosion game. Shaquille Leonard trending towards coming back, which is a little more concerning. But we haven't really. I mean, we've gotten some good Derrick Henry games. We just haven't gotten that like like all of a sudden, it's like if you're, let's say you're watching Red Zone and it's like Scott Hanson's like, well, let's cut to Tennessee and see what Derrick Henry's up to. And all of a sudden he, rips off a 75-yard.
So you think he
run.
has 150 this week?
Yeah.
Wow.
150 and like 2 or 3 touchdowns, I think.
Wow.
I don't know. It's a gut feeling. I mean, I could be wrong.
No, I think he's gonna have a good game too. I just don't know if he's gonna get to 150.
Or I don't think he's going to get there. I think he's going to get there by virtue of like 1 or 2 big pops, where he, when he looks like a freaking steamroller when he gets around the corner, and all of a sudden he's heading downhill, and just nobody can get in front of him.
I like Tennessee to cover the game. I think RJ played it the right. I would probably lean to taking the 8.5.
That sounds way more appealing than picking one of these teams to cover the 2.5. RJ's typically a smarter better than I am, which I'm not afraid to admit. So I got a best bet on Tennessee. It's not really a process. It's more like I think Derrick Henry's just going to go off on Sunday and have a huge game. Bucs at the Panthers. Bucs minus 11. Over under 40.5. My mother, whose birthday it is today, called me yesterday and said, she goes, I have a question. I was like, oh boy. She goes, what? She was like, I was like, is this like a heavy question or a light question? She was like, oh, for you, it'd be light. It's like, oh, what? She goes, what should I watch when we go see Tom Brady play on Sunday? My parents have never seen Tom Brady play in a football game, and they're going to get to go see probably his last game ever in North Carolina. What would you watch, Pete, if you were going to see Tom? What would you tell my mom to watch, to look for if she was going to watch Tom Brady? I said pocket movement and the quickness with which he gets the ball out.
I'd say watch him on the sideline screaming at his offensive lineman.
I almost told her that, actually.
Even though he went to a wedding on a Friday night and didn't take part in his walkthrough. That's a bad look for Tommy Brady. I'm sorry. He shouldn't have done it.
But actually, it came out later that that everyone who went didn't know it was a wedding until they got there. So he just went to a party for Bob Kraft.
He shouldn't have done it. Look,
Belichick didn't go.
Did it really impact the way he played? No. But what it impacts is the look. He already got away with getting 10 days off during training camp. Nobody else did. So now if you're a player on that team and you have Brady doing that, well, why can't I do it? If you're Mike Evans, hey, I think I'm going to take Friday night. I'm going to go fly somewhere and not take part in the walkthrough and meet you at the game. How about that? I mean, it's just not a good look for the team. So I didn't like it. Having said all that, Carolina's offense is putrid no matter who plays quarterback. The design is bad. Ben McAdoo's bad. It's a bad offense. I think Tampa Bay will get refocused here, even though back-to-back road games. I'll take Tampa minus the points. I don't love it, but I would take the Bucs.
Tampa's offense has no excuse for its sleepy performance versus a banged-up Pittsburgh defense last week. Their offense is now 21st in yards per play. We're going to talk about Green Bay in a bit and how their offense probably looks pretty bad to us and not like it usually is. There's 4 spots higher than Tampa. So we need to talk more about how Tampa's offense just does not look like it should. They can't run the ball, 32nd in yards per play there. Carolina's offense, like you said, just as bad against the Rams as usual. But they almost backdoor covered with Jacob Eason, their 4th quarterback, I guess, if you want to throw Sam Darnold in as the 2nd or 3rd. So they almost covered that game too. I think on this line, Carolina's probably the against the spread play, even as NFL's worst team, considering Tampa hasn't looked that good. But I don't want to do it. My best bet's here on under 40.5. That seems safer with how both these offenses are playing. I think for the listeners, the better play is to take the Carolina under 14.5, but that's at minus 135 on Caesars. And I didn't want to throw a minus 135 pick into our little chat since we don't do juice.
Are we allowed to do team totals?
Yeah, we can do team totals, but you want to make them, minus 120, somewhere close to around where we usually bet. But minus 135 seemed a little cheating, hedging toward taking something that's a little too high. So I would go play Carolina under 14.5, but my best bet for the show is under 40.5 overall.
You can't take the Panthers. Like everything about this game says catching 11 points at home. You're theoretically upgrading at quarterback. I don't know. I guess that's like it. Maybe you're showcasing Christian McCaffrey. Like the Panthers are the worst team in football, and it's not really even close. I don't think. They fired their head coach, fired their defensive coordinator.
Well, they don't throw the ball down the field ever. There's no plays designed for it. I know they have a bad offensive line, but you got to try.
McAdoo's not great. They stink, man. They're the worst team in football.
They're bad.
Have you? Yeah, I'll ask you this. I heard a rumor. Ross, I'll ask you about the rumor offline. The Panthers are going to stay in Carolina, right?
Yeah, no, they're staying. Hey, you have a wealthy owner who can do whatever he wants, and he's not getting what he wants there supposedly. So,
St. Louis Panthers.
I mean,
the London Panthers.
I always go back to a story that I told, and I'm going to name drop here when I had a conversation with Pete Rozelle way back in the day. And
that is a name drop, right?
And he was no longer.
You just go 2 generations back of NFL commissioners.
He was no longer the commissioner of the NFL. And he said, I want to tell you something right now. It was during the expansion process, the lead up to Jacksonville was trying to get a team. And he said, everything this league does from here on out will be dictated by stadiums. I said, everything? He goes, Super Bowls, expansion teams, movement, all dictated by stadiums. And if you go back and look, that man was spot on. Every single one of them was dictated. All the Super Bowls being awarded, they're all dictated by stadiums.
Well, that is
30 years ago now.
Sure. And he's 100% correct. Now, I was asked about that possibility with the Carolina Panthers, and my response was that David Tepper has already had one public battle with a municipality.
Down in Spartanburg.
Rock Hill,
not Spartanburg, but
Rock Hill, just right across the border. Like you can hit a 9-iron, maybe for a 5-iron, Pete, but you can you can get there pretty quickly. Point being is that he wants to upgrade Bank of America Stadium. It needs upgrading. It's going to be tough to get public money for it, and the fastest way to sort of twist the arm of the of a bureaucracy is to threaten to take the football team and leave. And if you got $16 billion, you can set up shop anywhere you want. So
London isn't feasible. I don't care what they say about that.
It's not. I think the pandemic changed how the NFL was thinking of approaching. Like you can't have a team in London. It just can't do it.
But so RJ, you mentioned St. Louis, but they'd have to upgrade the stadium,
right? Well, I mean, that's the thinking is that he'd be more willing to pay some of it than Kroenke was, but that's just me just speculating.
I mean, what other cities are possibilities? That's the question.
Raleigh.
Oh, he's
don't have to change the name. Just move him up.
Going to go to a smaller city. Give me a break.
I'm just kidding. All right, let's move on. Nobody cares about the Panthers. Enjoy the game, Mom. Falcons at the Bengals. Hey, look, you get to watch. She's never seen Tom Brady play. You get to see Tom Brady play. That's how I'm spelling it to her.
But San Antonio.
What's that?
San Antonio?
Possibly. They'd have to upgrade their stadium too, though.
Right. I mean, but he could temporarily play in the Alamo Dome and build something on the outskirts.
Like Texas needs another football team. Actually, you know what? I did have the Buccaneers. I'm taking the Buccaneers as the best bet out of principle because the Panthers stink. Like the Panthers are trash. So give me Buccaneers -11. Falcons at the Bengals. Bengals -6.5, over under 47.5. Cincinnati finally got it going offensively in a big way. I really wish this game was in Atlanta because then the Burrow and Chase combo would be like going back and running like an old tour of the stadiums where they played in on their run to win the national title because they obviously played the SEC championship game there. Falcons are second in rush attempts in the league, third in yards per game rushing. The Bengals just a little bit below average in terms of rush defense DVOA. Falcons not very good in terms of stopping the pass. Could we see a lot of points here, Pete, or you like anything else in this game?
Well, I do think it's going to be a high-scoring game. I like that, but I didn't put it in. I also like the Bengals. I think this is a bad spot for the Falcons coming off. They played well last week, coming off what was a big win for them, but now you got to go out and face that offense that's getting it cranked up. Here's the other thing. The Bengals have, played 4 of their 6 on the road. This is, they're not used to being at home, but I think it's going to be a nice change for them. I think Burrow and gang will get it going. I'll take the Bengals minus the points.
Atlanta's offense is top 10 in pass yards per play and rush yards per play, but they're more interested in running the ball, obviously. Even with injury to Patterson, it seems like they want to be a run-first offense. That's good against Cincy because their defense is much worse against the run, where they're 23rd in yards per play than pass. So it's an ideal matchup, I think, for Atlanta. Cincy's pass offense, though, should have success against Atlanta's defense, 32nd in sack rate. So if you ever need a get-right spot for an offensive line that's had its issues this year, it seems like Atlanta's the team you want to do it against. Atlanta's had 23-plus points in 5 of their 6 games. They only missed out against an elite Tampa Bay rush defense. And as I said, Cincy isn't at that level. So my best bet is over 47.5. I think both these teams will be able to do what they want to do and score.
Yeah, I've got the over too as a best bet, over 47.5.
Copy RJ's paper again.
I put all mine in the document before.
I'd like to change my pick, please.
I think it's great. I don't blame you.
I'm done.
I'm right.
He's out.
This is Burrow and the Bengals and that offense, and I think I looked and it's going to be like a really nice day in Cincinnati, like 78 and sunny. Burrow's be chucking it around against this Falcons secondary. They can't cover anybody. Jamar Chase. I think I put this out on a previous pod this week, but Jamar Chase is like 66-1 for offensive player of the year. I think it's a pretty good look, given that we've seen him have these explosive games. We know these voters are small-minded, recency biased, unintelligent people. I don't know any of them personally, but they're easily swayed by somebody.
They are swayed. There's a big group you can sway.
No, maybe Pete is a voter for all these awards, by the way. But Jamar Chase, like, if the Bengals win that division and get a high seed, and he has a monster year, and we saw him have a monster second half of the season last year. Yeah, you never know. I think 66-1 is a pretty good number.
They've learned to deal with the double and the playing off coverage. They had an adjustment to that early in the season. They've adjusted well to it, and I think that's going to be the biggest difference going forward.
Points galore here.
I like.
Would you start Kyle Pitts or Taysom Hill in fantasy, knowing that this is Thursday afternoon when I'm asking this? No, not much help for the podcast listeners.
Taysom.
Yeah, Kyle Pitts has been very disappointing. Maybe he finally gets it going in this game. We both like the over though. Browns at Ravens. There's a lot of big spreads this week. Ravens -6.5, over under 45.5. The Ravens have had double-digit leads in all 6 games this year. They're the 40th team in NFL history to do that, but the first one ever to do so without having a winning record. They are 18-5 all-time at home against the Browns. These are 2 of the top 7 scoring teams in the NFL and 2 of the top 6 teams in terms of yards per rush. Pete, can the Ravens hold on to a friggin' lead for once?
Yes, they will. And this is going to be a fun game to watch. Both defenses stink. I mean, the Ravens have gotten a little bit better on the defensive side of the ball. The Browns' defense is awful. I mean, Bailey Zappi, give me a break. I mean, they're terrible on that side of the ball all year long. It's been a major problem. A lot of players aren't playing up to expectations, and I think that shows week in and week out. I think Baltimore will be the play here. I take Baltimore minus the points. I think they get that offense going again. Look, Lamar Jackson, I mean, they went up and down the field. They outgained the Giants by 200 yards. They should have won that game. This time around, they will win the game. I'll lay the points minus the 6.5.
Yeah, with that domination statistically against the Giants in a game they lost, like they just can't close games for whatever reason. It feels like they're due for a blowout win. So I'm also a best bet on Baltimore -6.5. I think their inability to not close games is less of an issue against Cleveland pass offense is 24th in yards per play. Cleveland has to play from ahead if they get behind. I don't trust Jacoby Brissett at this point. Regardless of what he did early in the season, I don't trust him at this point to rally back. Baltimore's offense, 3rd in yards per play, 1st in rush yards per play. You're talking about how they're a good run team up against an awful Cleveland defense that like as you said, is bad overall, 28th overall in yards per play. So I think Baltimore gets ahead, stays ahead, and covers the 6.5. So I got that as a best bet too.
I tend to lean towards towards the Ravens as well. But I like the over in this one. I'm like turbo. There better be a lot of points this week because I got a bunch of overs, which is probably a bad sign for my bets to take a bunch of overs. Don't care. We've seen these 2 teams really like you can score on the Ravens and you can score on the Browns. We saw, like you said, Pete, Bailey Zappi lit them up. Lamar Jackson has a huge now this over, by the way, is not contingent for these best bets, but for the purposes of like actually wagering on it, make sure Lamar Jackson and Mark Andrews are playing in the game because they are both listed as, I don't know if they were listed as questionable on Wednesday, but they were not.
Play.
They're going to play. But just, I mean, if you're betting on the game, don't bet it over and then find out that Lamar Jackson and Mark Andrews are not going to play. I would guess that they're probable or even off the injury report come Friday, you would hope. But if they go, and I think they will. I expect a bunch of points in this game. I like the over 45.5. Nick Chubb will pop off a couple runs. Ravens will have a couple deep shots down the field. Lots of points. Ravens maybe cover, maybe hold on to a double-digit lead. We'll see. I'll take the over 45.5. Giants at the Jaguars. The Giants and the Bills are the only 2 teams in the NFL through 6 weeks to hold every single opponent under 24 points Pretty impressive. The Giants win. A Giants win in this game would match their most wins in the season over the last 6 years, which is wild. The Jaguars are one of 14 teams with a positive point differential and the only one with a losing record. Dexter Lawrence kind of having a breakout season, 4 sacks, including a sack in 3 straight games. Giants dead last in the NFL in rush yards allowed. Pete, can the Jaguars right the ship that is getting a little shaky here?
They will right the ship. And this is a great spot if you're Jacksonville, because the Giants are coming off a win that kind of gives them some validity, and they're feeling good about themselves, and they shouldn't have won the game. I mean, they got dominated in that game. Now they're going to go to Jacksonville, and the one thing the Giants do really well, run the ball. The one thing the Jaguars do on defense, they stop their run. They're bad against the pass because Shaq Griffin can't cover anybody. But I think you can limit what they do on the ground. I think Jacksonville will be able to move the ball on them, and so I'm going to take Jacksonville minus the points as one of my best bets.
It's such a weird line considering how many wins the Giants are stacking. And that tells you the market does not believe in the Giants. And the Giants are finding ways to win despite an offense that's 30th in pass yards. They're playing 31st in sack rate. They're not playing well offensively, and they're getting wins. The run game's been a major factor, like you're saying. Jacksonville's defense, 3rd in rush yards per play, so they match up well there. Giants defense struggles to stop the run. Jacksonville's offense just had 243 rush yards. My power ratings have this game around pick'em, so it says jump all over the Giants, but it feels like a trap game, and I'm kind of leaning on the Pete side, though. I don't want to lay the 3, so I lean to the Giants at this number. And honestly, I'm kind of hoping it gets bet down, and everybody wakes up and says, "Why are the Giants, underdogs in this game?" Bets it all the way down to like 1 or something, and then I might go Jacksonville.
Yeah, I got the Jaguars are the best bet too. And I've been all over the Jaguars this year. I think Jacksonville is a better team than what we've seen the last couple of weeks. They're at home, and it is a good spot, Pete, because I think everyone is going to bet the Giants. I think you're going to see most people pick the Giants in this spot. Brian Dable's done a heck of a job coaching this team up. They're the only team in the NFL this year where all 6 of their games have been 1 score or less. Like 8 points or less. They are, and that's not to criticize them. It's impressive that they keep all these games close and they find ways to stack these wins. But it does mean that you're sort of, a little bit smoke and mirrorsy in terms of how you're getting these W's. I think this could be a big time Travis Etienne and or James Robinson spot because of the Giants' inability to stop.
By the way, it's Kayvon Thibodeau, Trayvon Walker, Kayvon Thibodeau.
Oh, good point.
Trayvon Walker, he doesn't rush the passer very well.
He's going to get better. He's going to get run there.
Who needs to learn how to rush the passer. Every single move is straight into the stomach of the offensive tackle, whereas Thibodeau has that. I thought coming out, I had Thibodeau as my number 1 pass rusher, but I'll be curious to see how this plays out.
Thibodeau's nasty.
He's going to be really good.
Yeah. I think Trayvon Walker will be good too.
He will be, but I would take Thibodeau. Be a great pass rusher.
Yeah. If he can. Don't you think it's easier to learn to be a good pass rusher than to learn to be a good player against a run?
Yes.
Yeah.
No.
Other way?
You're naturally a physical football player. You're going to be good against the run. If you got to learn the move. I mean, he's a power player. And he just runs right into the chest of the tackle every play.
Well, better show up this week because you're going to look like a fool. Make Trent Baalke look like an idiot. Trent Baalke's been quiet, hasn't he?
Yeah. Very quiet.
Like really quiet.
Yeah.
Huh.
It's probably a method to that madness.
Interesting. All right. Let's take a break. We'll ponder Trent Baalke's silence. And when we come back, we'll talk about a rematch. Super Bowl LIV. Next. Chiefs -2.5 at the 49ers. Over under 48.5. As I mentioned, Super Bowl LIV. Trey Lance is out, so Jimmy Garoppolo is in. Our podcast star, I think that's his title, director of audio or director of something. I don't know what his title is. Junior director of audio podcast, Eric K, complained about my revenge game narrative. And I said that it was simply to troll Pete. Like, this is the only reason I bring up revenge games. Is this a Jimmy Garoppolo revenge game? Hosting the Chiefs, the team that took out his Super Bowl victory.
It's to be a revenge game. It's got to be against your former team.
No, it doesn't.
In your world,
revenge on anybody.
I don't buy any of it ever, anyways. But no, this is an opportunity for Jimmy Garoppolo. The problem is his defense is banged up. I mean, really banged up. And I think this is a great spot for the Chiefs. You know, one thing you noticed when you watched the Chiefs last week, the Bills don't play a ton of man defense all the time. They played a lot last week. Why? They don't scare down the field anymore. And that's a problem. And I think the Tyreek Hill stuff showed up a little bit last week. But this is a banged up Niners team. I'm going to take the Chiefs minus the points on the road.
Yeah, I like the Chiefs too at -2.5. I have it as a best bet. Their offense is great on third down and in the red zone. Those situational, plays where San Francisco's defense is just good, despite being the number 1 overall defense. They're not like elite in those levels. If they don't get those pieces back, several pieces back on defense, I don't know if they slow Mahomes that much. Feels like the Chiefs D is struggling against the run, just when you look at the last few games, but they are 6th in rush yards per play, so they may be able to shut down the run to an extent here and put the game in Jimmy G's hands. So with the line down to 2.5, it seems like a teasable line where I want to go with the home dog, tease them up to 8.5. But I'm more interested in backing Kansas City at -2.5 than teasing San Francisco. So I put Kansas City in as a best bet.
Daniel Cordero says, bring back the parlay. Give the guys one more chance to prove themselves. If they lose, it's gone forever. The guys will try harder knowing that it is on the line. That is true. We will try harder. You'll do one more parlay?
Try harder than you normally do. I mean, it's the dumbest narrative I've ever heard.
I wrote down this 49ers as a best bet, and I don't really think I like it.
So what are you going to do with it?
I think I'm going to toss it. I'm going to toss it.
You're going to what?
I think I'm going to toss it and just have one less best bet. I don't like it. This line stinks too, right?
Report. Have you seen the update on their injury report by any chance? I know because their defense is banged up.
Yeah, they have. Let's see.
If you like San Francisco initially, I mean, you should be teasing them at this number.
Yeah, you're probably right. Now, interestingly enough, no practice for Joe Thuney with his ankle injury, so I think that's notable. Mecole Hardman was good. Oh my goodness gracious, that is a long list of.
Read them out. I mean, it's just amazing when you look at it.
All right, Tyler. Here are the guys who are limited or did not practice: Nick Bosa, Drake Jackson, Trent Williams, Jimmy Ward, Travarius Ward, Eric Armstead, Mike McGlinchey, Samson Ebukam. I always get his name wrong. Trent Williams is limited practice. That's interesting. If he comes back, that's a big one.
Yeah, but look at those defensive guys. You're talking about Armstead, Bosa, Ward,
the Wards and Bosa and Armstead. That's a problem.
It's a lot.
Could be a shootout. Yeah, you know what? Screw it. I'll take. Yeah, you're right. All right. I'll if I find another game I like to tease, I'll do that. Otherwise, I'll keep it out. I'll decide before we finish. Seahawks at the Chargers. Geno Smith. Oh, Geno Smith revenge game.
Here, this is what this game is.
Chargers -6 over under 51. Go ahead.
For anybody out there who is in, Jamie Eisenberg does start of the week.
Oh no, he didn't.
No, he didn't do it, but I'm going to do it. If I was giving out a start of the week this week, it would be Kenneth Walker.
Oh yeah.
He's going to run for 142. And the Chargers can't stop. No matter what they do, they can't stop the run. They're
crazy.
like Green Bay. They bring all these new guys in, and they still can't stop the run. Kenneth Walker will run for a ton of yards. Seattle's going to hang around in the game. The Chargers will get theirs. They'll get points. Keenan Allen's back. They'll get points. They don't throw the ball down the field, though. Doesn't really matter who's back. The design of their offense is awful for a guy with a big cannon of an arm. And so I think they'll limit what they do. They'll throw complete passes. But I think this is going to be a game where Kenneth Walker has a huge game, and I'm going to take Seattle plus the points as the best bet.
Yeah, you're right about Walker. Chargers defense 31st in rush yards per play, and I think having a good run game is going to help Geno in the pass game too, because they have to worry about Walker. You say, well, Allen might be back. I think they have a bye next week, and he's been out for so long that I think they just hold him out for another 2 weeks. Seattle's offense finally slowed down against Arizona, but being, like you said, Walker looking like a gem even in that game. And then I think the pass game will get going once he gets going against the Chargers. Seattle's D coming off a great day, but it's a much tougher test here against an elite passing game, even if Justin Herbert doesn't seem to be used to the fullest extent of his abilities in these games for whatever reason. Should be a lot of points. I would lean over 51 or down. Now it's down to 50. It seems like it's crashing down. So I think we'll get value here on the over. Would also lean Seattle. It's now at 5.5. I'm not really playing it at 5.5, but if you can get 6, or maybe even 6.5 like it was earlier in the week, I think that's a good play on the Seattle side.
Yep, I like the Seahawks, and I love the over. I have the over 51 as a best bet. It's very annoying to take an over 51, and then you wait. The next day you do the podcast, and it's down to 50. But it's great if you're betting it and you're listening to the show and you want to take the over because you're getting a free point there. I agree 100% with you on Kenneth Walker. And I think I put that in my picks column. Like Kenneth Walker props are great here. Take the like it's when you ladder props is when you like you basically take like if his total is 67.5 rushing yards, you take the over, and then you take Kenneth Walker 75 rushing yards, Kenneth Walker 90 rushing yards, Kenneth Walker 100 rushing yards, and you start getting plus money. And if he does pop off for $150 and 2, all of a sudden you have a big day on your hands. I think he's a fun runner to watch. He's going to get a heavy workload from the Seahawks. And then the reason I like the over, though, is because Seattle's defense can't stop anybody. And the Chargers, when you get them in a spot where they have to try to come back, are a much more explosive team than they are when they're sort of playing it tight. Justin Herbert will start cutting it loose. I think we see a ton of points in this game. Love the over in this spot. I also think the Seahawks are absolutely live to win. Wouldn't be shocked if Geno has a nice little game as well. But I think you're right, Pete. I think they lean on Kenneth Walker here. Steelers at the Dolphins Sunday night. The return of Tua Tagovailoa to Miami. He is first in the NFL in yards per passing attempt. Tyreek Hill is first in the NFL in receiving yards, and Tyreek and Jalen Waddle are both top 5 in receiving yards. The Steelers have allowed 31 plays of 20+ yards this year, most in the NFL. How does Tua look in his return as a 7-point favorite with a total of 45, Pete?
Who knows? I mean, do you know? I mean,
no.
he could be out of that game early. You have no idea. I mean, that's the scary thing about him. But I'm going to take the Steelers. I just think the points are too many. And not because of the quarterback situation on either team, because there's questions about both of them. It's more of the Dolphins. Both defenses aren't good. So if you're going to give me a touchdown, Miami's defense hasn't played well either. If you're going to give me a touchdown, I'm going to take it. So I'll take the Steelers plus the points.
I'm on the other side. I love the Dolphins -7. I thought the defense actually played well against Minnesota. Minnesota had 9 of their 11 first downs on 2 drives, and they couldn't do anything else except for one long cook run to ice the game. And sure, Miami has those plays where they're giving up a few big plays here and there, but they allowed 181 yards of offense aside from that cook run. Pittsburgh's offense, 32nd in yards per play, not explosive at all. Najee Harris running into the line for 0 yards. I think you have to hope Kenny Pickett is able to play in this game to have a chance, because I don't trust this offense with Trubisky. I love fading a team like Pittsburgh. Not very good, coming off an upset win. Now they got to go on the road to a place that has a tough home field in prime time. Just seems like they're set up to have a stinker here. Miami's defense has kind of played above the stats in the past, thanks to their ability to create turnovers. They don't look statistically like a good defense, but then they'll get turnovers, and I think they can get them here in this matchup. So with Miami finally getting their quarterback back, I don't think the line's adjusted enough. I think the line should be 9.5. I'm not worried about him getting hurt, even if he does. I think Bridgewater does enough to cover this game, and the Dolphins defense steps up here. So I like Miami -7 as a best bet.
Did you think about using the Dolphins in a teaser at all?
At 7, no. I want to get 7.5, 7.5, 8, 8.5 on teasers.
Okay, so in other words, like you're willing to
if
lay.
TJ Watt was there, I'd really love the Steelers, because the Miami offensive line is putrid, by the way.
Yeah, I got nothing in this game. I do think there's a chance for like sneaky points being scored. If I guess it's we'll see what happens with the Steelers quarterback situation. I'm still bitter about them taking out the Buccaneers and ruining one of my survivor leagues, but whatever. Tyreek and Waddle, Tua, could be big games. A lot of explosive plays given up by the Steelers. Wouldn't be surprised. Bears of the Patriots, Monday Night Football. Patriots -7. And actually, this game, they might be up to like 9. Did I see that last night? Right? Bring up that line, Billy.
I saw 8. I saw the Westgate Super Contest put out somewhere. The Super Contest put out 8.5 as their line. So I think they're expecting to go up a little bit.
Okay. Well, we'll see in a second. Billy gets it together. Come on, Billy. Patriots -7.5 is the line that we are utilizing. I see a Pats -8. Total down to 39.5. 7.5 still on Caesars. I mean, look, I figured out who my teaser team is of the 49ers. Patriots.
Well, they're my teaser team.
By the way, did you see what Belichick did this week?
Yeah, the long answer to the question about how good the Bears were.
He named like every player on their roster.
That's just vintage poor mouthing. That's what that is.
That's him saying, "I'm going to snuff you out and slaughter you on Monday night." To me,
I like the Patriots as a team. I'm going to put them as part of my teaser. I have 2 teams in it. I haven't revealed the other one yet because that's to come. But I'll take the Patriots as part of the teaser. Look, Their defense played well last week. I thought they did a nice job. Their offensive line's doing a really nice job suddenly, and because they're well coached. It's a well coached team. Tyquan Thornton adds a speed element to that offense, which they needed, and I think it helped open up the tight ends last week a little bit as well. So I'm going to take the Patriots to just totally limit what the Bears do. I'll make it a first part of the teaser. I'll tease it down to 1.5.
Second part of my teaser with Indy, teasing it down to 1.5. Also, the New England defense has gotten run on by a few opponents, so I think Chicago offense could have success. So I still like him at 7.5, but that makes me a little weary in case the Bears run game gets going. But if Chicago falls in a hole at all, New England's defense won't let him back in the game, putting it on Justin Fields to lead him back. New England's offense now 8th in yards per play and 3rd in pass yards per play, despite Zappi playing half the games, showing he can get it done. Might not be him this week. It sounds like Mac Jones might be ready to return, so that should lift the line, I think, also, because I think you have to still upgrade them. Even though Zappies look good, you have to give New England an upgrade when they get Mac Jones back. But Chicago doesn't seem as bad as I thought earlier in the year. I probably will be looking to play them in some weeks coming up, but this is a very tough matchup for them. So I like New England here at 7.5, but definitely tease it down to 1.5.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Pats minus 7.5 as the best bet. And also, as I mentioned, make the Pats minus 1.5 in the 49ers plus 8.5 as part of a teaser. Look, Belichick doesn't do that very often. I mean, he came out and like heaped praise on the Bears for being a great young team. Matt Eberflus's scheme, their running game. He was talking about their special teams, everything they do well. Everything. He's like, they just listing every player on the roster. He was talking about how Dante Pettis is like a major factor in their kick return game. Like that is a guy who knows that the next 4 or 5 weeks can absolutely change the trajectory of the Patriots season. And he is going to, what did you call it? Poor mouthing?
Poor mouthing. Yeah.
Is that like
all coaches do it.
Yeah. Well, you're just like, you're hyping up a team that like you're saying stuff you don't believe.
Well,
yeah, and you want it to happen the other way. And so you use that like RJ when he says the Bills won't win the Super Bowl. The Bills won't win the Super Bowl. The Bills won't win the Super Bowl. And then it happens and he's poor mouthing.
Well, it's that, and they're statistically unlikely, even though they are the favorites, just because there's 31 other teams. But I think with what Belichick's doing, it also sends a signal to his guys. Say, I know these teams look like a punching bag. Don't take them lightly because they have Dante Pettis. So you have to like factor in for Dante Pettis and everybody else he mentioned. And the offensive line's playing well, which they're not. So he's like, whatever position group you are, don't take this team lightly.
Yeah. It's sending a message to your team for sure. Anyway, I like the Pats as a best bet and the Patriots in that teaser. I just think it's going to be a bloodbath. And I do agree with RJ. Like, this is one where that line is going to move towards, if Mac Jones is announced back, it's going to go up to like 8 or 9. So if you like the Pats, go ahead and get it in now. All right, let's do some rapid fire picks.
Well, now I do have a second.
Yeah, we're moving pretty quickly, General. So we'll just
Yeah, okay. Well, the second part of my teaser is on the Cowboys, in case you.
Yep. Lions at the Cowboys. Cowboys minus 7 over under 49. The Lions are giving up 34 points per game and 428.6 yards per game. That would be the second worst points per game and yards per game in the Super Bowl era if that holds on. The last time the Lions won on the road was week 13 in 2020. Their leading rusher was Adrian Peterson. Cowboys 24 sacks through 6 games is their most in that first 6 games since 1987. Crazy. You like the Cowboys in a teaser, huh?
Yeah, I do. I think, this defense is so bad for.
And Dak is back for sure, by the way.
What's that?
Dak is 100% back.
Yeah, he's back. He's going to play, and that means that the passing game will open up down the field, which it didn't do with Cooper Rush. He was exposed for being nothing more than a backup. That's what he is. Dak Prescott's a better player. They'll get some shots down the field, which they haven't been getting. And against that defense, they're going to score. But I'm going to make it the second part of my teaser minus the 1.
If we're confident in Dak, South over is the way to look in a Detroit game. But Detroit covered 4 straight off their bye last year as the run game took over. I think they could have something similar here. I think their offensive line is good enough to maybe give the Dallas defensive line a little bit of problems. And if Dak is rusty, maybe Detroit covers. My lean is to Detroit plus 7. Lean is to the over. Didn't love either one.
Yeah, I wanted to take the over as a best bet here. With another over. Who didn't want another over? But the issue is that Dak's hand. Remember that Russell Wilson game against the Packers when he came back early last year with a hand injury? It's just hard to predict how good the Dallas offense will be. And I think that if they get any kind of lead, they will try and run Zeke as much as possible. Run Zeke, run Tony Pollard as much as possible.
By the way, just for a footnote to the game, Zeke Elliott is the start of the week this week for Jamie Eisenberg.
Oh boy.
And he needs one. He's been 0 for 2 the last 2 weeks. He needs one.
So you're saying he's a loser? I would lean towards the Lions.
By the way, Brady Quinn took that and made it national the other day on his pregame show on Fox.
He did?
That? Yeah. I
He
called
said
him
loser.
Yeah, I called him out for it.
Did he give you credit?
No.
Shaking my head. SMH, or as the kids say. Texans at the Raiders. Another 7-point game. Raiders -7. Over under 45.5, Pete.
Yeah, this is a have to for the Raiders if they're to be anything this season, and I think this is a perfect spot to become something, at least for this week. And so I'll take the Raiders minus the points.
My power ratings have them Raiders around average, but they haven't proven it in their record. Not often you see a 1-4 team with 7-point favorites. It means there's probably a reason for it. Houston in a good situation, though, coming off a bye like the Raiders on the road. I think that helps them out. They could surprise with 2 weeks to prepare. So I didn't want to go all in on the Raiders, but I lean that way.
Another over for me. The Raiders have allowed 23 plus points in every game this season. Nico Collins, second in the NFL in yards per catch, but no touchdowns. Interesting. Texans also 29th in rush defense DVOA, and Josh Jacobs playing very well, 6.1 yards per carry in the last 3 games. Damian Pierce leading all rookies with rushing yards. I will take the over 45.5. I think we got a little, I like maybe a Galaxy Brain Davis Mills stack with Josh Jacobs sort of DFS setup. I could see that being something I do, and then it fails miserably on Sunday. Jets at the Broncos. Broncos -1, an over-under of 38. We have to assume we'll see how the line moves. The line was Broncos -3, and then the Russell Wilson stuff came out, and the line shifted down to 1. I mean, obviously, Russell makes a huge difference in this game. I would assume he
does. He?
Yeah. If he plays, they're worse.
Yeah, I mean, does he? I mean, what's that mean? The Jets will be favored if he plays? I mean, he's played poorly, but look, this is a great spot for the Broncos in my mind. And you got another team coming off an enormous win, back out on the road again against a defense that's played really well. I think this is a spot for the Broncos. I'll take the Broncos as one of my best bets.
Denver's defense playing very good against the pass and on third down, so I can't see the Jets scoring much here. Wilson is not playing well, but I still think it's a big drop to Rippon, considering that Hackett is the one calling the shots. You think about how bad Wilson's played, but he's probably saved them on some drives too from some whatever nonsense that Hackett is doing behind the scenes. So if you have Rippon there, I don't think you get that. If Wilson plays, I looked at back Denver before it gets back to 3. I put the Jets as a teaser at 2.5 in my teaser column when it started to come down. So I still like the Jets as a teaser if you're getting in that 1.5 to 2.5 range, considering how bad the Broncos offense has looked.
Yeah, Jets defense is legit. Quentin Williams, man, what a season for him so far. He's
been a monster.
Can't
block him.
I couldn't actually find him. Brady and I talked about this briefly, but like he's a good look for Defensive Player of the Year, right? Is that?
By the way, somebody told me he got a bad grade last week. Garrett Wilson had a higher grade than him in PFF last week.
Did you not see what happened?
What?
PFF changed the grade and moved it up 16 points. 16. It was like 74. They moved it up to 90.
But they see what they want to see.
I think they basically apologized for like that grade didn't meet our standards. We're sorry. All right, Pete's got the Broncos as a best bet there. Billy, stop telling me to move on. We're going quickly through these games. This podcast is flying. Packers -5 at the Commandos. Over under 41.5. Taylor Heineke will start. Last win for Green Bay was the 2016 wild card game. Last win for Green Bay in Washington. Excuse me. This is the worst record in Aaron Rodgers' career through 6 games. He's been 3-3 4 times. Just has Tom Brady. Washington tie 1 most sacks allowed in the NFL. Packers dead last in DVOA against the run. Is it a Brian Robinson explosion game, Pete?
Yes, it is, and he's gonna have, just like Kenneth Walker has the big day against the Chargers. Brian Robinson has the big day against the Packers. Packers will win the game, but Brian Robinson and his ability to run the football, and Heineke can run it too. They're going to keep him in the game, so I'm going to take the 5. That's one of my best bets.
I didn't downgrade Washington power rating at all with Heineke at quarterback over Wentz, considering how Wentz has played. I don't think that's really a downgrade. Shocking how much Green Bay's offense is struggling, only 4 yards per play at home against the Jets D. Washington's defense couldn't stop the run against Chicago. They should get pressure on Aaron Rodgers. I would lean to Washington too. Yeah.
By the way, is what happens if Washington wins this game? Like, what? I mean, the national, like the conversations around Aaron Rodgers on Monday and the Packers would be kind of like hilarious to watch.
Well, I mean, if they lost the game and Brian Robinson ran for 220, it's not going to be around him.
It's not going to be on Rodgers. Yeah, it's going to be on that.
It's going to be on Joe Barry.
Might see some.
Well, it depends. Does Robinson run for 220 and Washington win 38-10, or do they win 38-35?
You know, if he runs for 220 and he wins 38-28, then Rodgers throws for 330 and 3. Then it's all about Joe Barry.
Man, would love to know who he's throwing to get 330 and 3. I mean, we get some.
One thing they've done is they've simplified. When you said they simplified it, remember they went back. They started. Rodgers used to hate the guys. Packer receivers have told me that way back in the day. He hated the movement, the pre-snap movement.
Right.
He like got 2 over here, 1 over here. Go run your ISO route. Well, they got away from that the last couple of years, but now because he doesn't trust those guys, they're getting back to it more.
Oh, so you think that when he's saying simplify, when he said we need to simplify things, what he's saying is, hey, Matt, stop using motion, stop using pre-snap motion.
Rodgers never liked it. That's what some of those Packers receivers told me that way back in the day.
Interesting. I had something to say, but I forgot what it was. Anyway, I got no best bet on that. Pete's got the Commandos +5. RJ, you got any look aheads for week 8?
I like 49ers +2.5 at the Rams. I have the set pick 'em with the Rams not looking great, but they'll be off the bye, so they get that advantage there, even though they're at home. And you kind of like teams being on the road when coming off the bye. If San Fran loses to Kansas City this week, have to figure they'll be desperate for a win. Maybe if they lose and they look really bad, the line goes up and we can get a better value at 3. But since I have my ratings at pick 'em, I think 2.5 is the number to get on right now.
All right, I dig it. Let's recap our best bets. Pete's best bets. Jaguars -3, Commandos +5, a Pats Cowboys teaser that gets the Pats to -1.5 and the Cowboys to -1, I believe. Broncos -1, Steelers +7, Seahawks +6. RJ's best bets. We had chalky RJ. Baltimore -6.5, KC -2.5, Miami -7, Atlanta Cincy over 47.5, Tampa Bay Carolina under 40.5. That's just looks like a great bet. Teaser Indy +8.5 and New England -1.5. That also looks great. I like those, RJ. My best bets: Titans -2.5, Jaguars -3. I'm really chalky. Bucs -11, Falcons over 47.5, Ravens over 45.5, Seahawks over 51, Patriots -7.5, and a Pats and 49ers teaser. A lot of bets this week.
You really are chalky. You got all big. You got favorites and overs. You're chalky.
To the listeners, Brinson likes my bets. Parlay the other side of all of them, and you'll be a sure winner.
That's right. Slam the we have the over that we both like, the Atlanta Cincy over 47.5.
Mm-hmm.
I think that one actually climbs up a little bit because the weather looks nice. All right, that'll do it for us. Let's get a good week. We need a good week.
We do.
If we all finish above 500 this week, we'll run back the parlay in week 8 one time.
Yes. Good deal.
That is our promise to you.
9 times out of 10, you'll be the one dragging us down, and we won't be doing it.
Probably 10 out of 10, but that's fine.
Hitting a parlay is less of a long shot than us all finishing over 500. Apparently,
way less.
The way we've been going.
Like a money line parlay of all like -400 favorites is way less of a possibility than us hitting all above 500. All right, that'll do it for us for the Best Bet Show. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. For Pete, for RJ, I'm Brinson. We will see you guys later.